Hi everyone, I'm Anita and I will present my case study on the reputational crisis that Cricket Australia faced after the ball tampering incident in South Africa in 2018. Some background information. Cricket Australia is the national governing body for cricket in Australia and was established in 1892. It is a not-for-profit organisation that oversees the game of cricket in Australia and has a board of 9 directors. In 2018, the chairman was David Peever and the CEO was James Sutherland. Cricket Australia was one of the founding members of the ICC, the International Cricket Council, that presides over world cricket. Cricket Australia is currently one of the 12 ICC members. Cricket Australia attracted high media coverage in 2017 because it was initially unable to reach a consensus with the Australian Cricketers Association ACA to negotiate a new Memorandum of Understanding MOU to negotiate a percentage of income for players generated from playing cricket games, which resulted in several players being without contract for 33 days before a new agreement was finalised. Another focus was on some players' behaviour towards the opposition team and pushing the boundaries of what was accepted conduct for representing the Australian men's team, wearing the baggy green and to play their sport in the spirit of the game. The scenario. On Saturday, March 24, 2018, during the third day of the South Africa vs Australia Test match in Cape Town, a live footage on television shows how an Australian player, Cameron Bancroft, holding an object, later revealed to be a piece of yellow sandpaper, to roughen up one side of the cricket ball to generate a reverse swing, which could give his team a competitive advantage. He then attempts to get rid of the incriminating evidence by shoving it down his pants. The footage is shown repeatedly on international news stations and causes strong reactions from various stakeholders, including former and current players of the two teams, as well as from other international teams, cricket fans around the world and the media. At a press conference the same day, Steve Smith, the Australian men's cricket captain, admits that his team had conspired to cheat and tamper with the ball in order to gain a competitive advantage. Smith states that he would not step down as the Australian team captain, but offers his apology. Crisis typology. Crises can emerge suddenly or develop over time, are internal or external to an organization with different degrees of negative impact. A crisis can be viewed from a time perspective, such as pre-crisis, crisis and post-crisis, and whether it is a sudden or smoldering crisis, caused by humans or forces outside the company, for example an earthquake. Hence, classifying crisis is a useful approach to understand, manage and keep a crisis under control. The ball tampering incident was a man-made smouldering crisis. Leading up to the ball tampering incident were issues within Cricket Australia, such as a culture that promoted winning at all costs and tolerating rogue behaviour from some players on field, for example lack of respect for opposition players and the use of abusive language. This eventually led to a smouldering crisis when the ball tampering occurred. A smouldering crisis is described as issues developing within an organization into a crisis because they were not adequately addressed by management. An issue is a disputed disagreement deriving from the perception gap of what stakeholders expect to be considered appropriate behavior and the organization's actual conduct. Cricket Australia underestimated the importance of their own values, especially playing cricket in the law and spirit of the game, which sets out the expectations of how all partakers play the game in a fair and respectful manner and displaying appropriate conduct. Hence, Cricket Australia made some misjudgments when it came to appropriately address their stakeholders, namely current and former Australian and international cricket players, the Players' Union ACA, the ICC, and importantly, the cricket fans and wider cricket community in Australia and internationally. The issue life cycle. Issues in an organization can further develop in a cycle if not adequately addressed by an organization. The issue life cycle comprises of 4 stages during which pressure on the organization to react increases. At stage 1, the issue originates. In this case, concerns begin to emerge in the years before the incident that participants in the Australian men's cricket team may not always adhere to the values of fair play and respect for the opposition players. Sports journalists as well as cricket fans are voicing concerns over the aggressive culture and disrespectful behaviour of some players in the team. At this stage, There is potential that this issue could become more serious, and the organization has options to influence the progression of events. There is some media coverage, but not enough to pressure Cricket Australia to take further action. During stage 2 of the issue life cycle, organizations face increased pressure to react to the emerging issue. Media coverage significantly increases and generates more interest in the wider public. The mass media runs several stories about the test matches and unfortunately heightens focus on off-field clashes between Australian and South African players instead of the game of cricket on the field. Cricket Australia has still the opportunity to influence the behavior of their players. At stage 3, the issue matures very quickly when the ball tampering attempt is covered on live television. At this stage of the life cycle, the different stakeholders recognize the full importance of the issue and pressure builds, which sees the issue rapidly evolve into a crisis. The press conference during which Steve Smith admits to cheating blows the issue into a crisis. When the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull addresses the issue briefly in a press conference and clearly stating his disappointment about the event and his expectations that Cricket Australia will address these issues with determination, the pressure on the organisation has reached a high point. At stage 4, the issue has now attracted interest from the highest political figure in Australia, as well as from the wider public, not just in Australia, but in other cricket-loving countries, and has reached the top of the life cycle. At this point, organizations are under an enormous amount of pressure to accept conditions brought forward by policymakers and legislation. Although Cricket Australia promised to launch a full investigation into the ball tampering issue, both the Prime Minister and the Australian Sports Commission request that Captain Steve Smith and all other parties involved to be stood down from their positions within the team. Crisis communication response. Effective crisis communication is essential for the long-term survival of an organization. The way how an organization responds to a crisis event has a major influence how the wider public perceives its integrity and reputation for the long term. A reputational crisis occurs when extensive reporting of a hugely negative incident causes influential stakeholders to reassess their opinion of an organization. As a not-for-profit organization, Cricket Australia is governed by values, and these represent morals and integrity which drive the actions and performances of the organization and therefore enhance its trust with the public. Cricket Australia is the governing body for the game of cricket in Australia, and the players in the national team are seen as representatives for the country. And the fact that the captain of the team admitted to cheating not only exposed the gap between the organization's values and their players' conduct, but also the cause for the crisis. Cricket Australia's responsibility was a lack of leadership in instilling a healthy culture in the Australian men's cricket team, and the exposed ball tampering caused strong anger amongst its main stakeholders. These were including the CEO, chairman, board members, players, coaches, support staff, the ACA, the sponsors, cricket fans, and the Australian Sports Commission, State Cricket, Australian Government, ICC, international cricket teams, former players, the community cricket clubs and the media. One day after the ball tampering incident, Cricket Australia CEO James Sutherland answered some questions during a press conference, stating the following main points. Cricket Australia will send senior officials to South Africa to investigate the incident. Steve Smith will remain the captain of the team for now. Cricket Australia will not issue any sanctions until a full investigation has taken place. He stated that this was a sad and embarrassing day for Australia, but he did not use the word cheating. The press conference did not contain new information. In contrary, it lacked content to ensure the public that Cricket Australia took on a leadership role to manage the crisis. Situational crisis communication theory. Using Coombs' situational crisis communication theory, this applied theory can assist organizations to use the appropriate response approach based on its crisis situation and the three elements that influence the reputational risk: responsibility, its crisis history, and its prior relational reputation. Once the organization comprehends the crisis situation, it can apply an appropriate crisis response strategy to repair and protect its reputation from further damage. The incident was clearly perceived as preventable, and it was important for Cricket Australia to apply the appropriate crisis response strategy, not only to protect their reputation from further damage, but also to respond to stakeholders' outrage and demanding more information and answers. Coombs states that an organization's ethical responsibility during a crisis is to provide its stakeholders with information to avoid uncertainty and outlining what the organization will do to prevent a similar crisis happening again in the future. After the ball tampering incident was broadcasted live on television, it was crucial for Cricket Australia to use an effective response strategy to address the incident immediately. However, it was not until the next day, Sunday the 25th of March, that the organization held its first press conference. During the press conference, James Sutherland placed Cricket Australia in the victim cluster with a weak attribution to crisis responsibility and seen as a victim of the incident. This frame should be used when reputational damage is likely to be limited and forces external to the organization cause harm. He applied the diminish crisis response strategy and mentioned that due to the location in South Africa and the time difference, the organization would need more time to fully investigate the incident. The diminished crisis response strategy maintains that the crisis is not too bad, or the organization could not control the situation and did not have an intent for the crisis to occur. The crisis response strategy should be used when there is a small attribution of responsibility with or without a record of similar incidents and negative, neutral or positive former stakeholder relationship reputation. However, the reputational damage was severe after the players admitted to cheating and the Prime Minister getting involved. Furthermore, not-profit organizations are particularly at risk during the crisis because the public hold them to a higher standard than for-profit organizations. Hence, the biggest damage to the organization occurs when the community loses trust and are disappointed in the organization. Although Cricket Australia followed Coombs' SCCT model and applied a diminished response strategy, some of its main stakeholders, especially the media, did not accept the victim cluster and instead attributed the organization to the intentional crisis. Cricket Australia issued a 12-month ban for Steve Smith and David Warner and a 9-month suspension for Cameron Bancroft. Bob Every quit the Cricket Australia board in May 2018. Every was a senior official who had been on tour with the Australian men's cricket team in Cape Town and was criticised for not showing leadership and representing Cricket Australia during the crisis. Cricket Australia's CEO James Sutherland announced his resignation from his position in the organisation in June 2018. Cricket Australia assigned the Ethics Centre to undertake an independent review into its organisational culture and governance frameworks. The report found that responsibility for the events in Cape Town lies with Cricket Australia and not just with the players. This finding can help Cricket Australia to prevent a similar situation to occur again and prepare the organisation for future crisis management. As a response to the report findings, David Peever resigned from his position as chairman. Moving forward, Cricket Australia has learned from the ball tampering crisis and appointed a new coach for the Australian men's cricket team, Justin Langer. He vowed that ball tampering would not occur again in Australia under his watch, but stated that it was an international problem. Similarly, Cricket Australia's new CEO, Kevin Roberts, highlighted the importance to rebuild trust and respect between Cricket Australia's administration and players and the global cricket community. This concludes this case study. Thank you for watching my presentation.